My ex is basically family. I added her to Mia and Daniel's guest list. If you trust me, you'll get it. Leo said it while my mother was digging for the serving spoon and my father was halfway through his second glass of Malbec. Sunday roast, polite conversation, the click of cutlery, then that line, dropped in the middle like a firecracker. I smiled so gently it hurt. Of course, I said. I trust you. Across the table, my sister Mia stopped mid-green bean and shot me a look that said, "Don't you dare make a scene." Her fiancé, Daniel, tried to adjust his napkin like it could absorb tension. My mother, who collects awkward moments like antique thimbles, blinked hard and said, "Sophie? The one from college?" in the same voice she uses for weather updates and death notices. "The same," Leo said, sawing at the roast like he hadn't just set the table on fire. "She's in town for work. It'll be fun, nostalgic. You all loved her." Small correction, no one in my family had met Sophie. She was a legend from Leo's before me years, an origin story, and almost. In his telling, she moved to Austin 3 years ago for a startup gig and morphed into a harmless memory. Exactly the kind of person you don't invite to your wife's sister's wedding. My dad cleared his throat, slow and gravelly. "If Nora's comfortable, then fine." He shot me a look I recognized from childhood. "You good?" Blinked twice if I should escort anyone out. I cut my potatoes into neat squares and tasted nothing. "Whatever makes you happy," I said. The words felt like borrowing someone else's mouth. Leo leaned back, satisfied. Under the table, Mia's heel pressed into my shoe. She mouthed, "Later." We made it through dessert on autopilot. Leo charming, my parents polite, Mia vibrating like a phone on silent. Leo stuck to the script. His ex was basically family, she helped with charity thingies. My mother does book drives, not gala auctions, and everyone will be thrilled. He had answers to questions no one asked, which is how you know someone practiced. On the ride home, he hummed to a jazz playlist and rested his hand on my knee like an affidavit of normalcy. At a red light, I asked, casual soft, "When did Sophie get back from Austin?" He hesitated. "Not even a full beat. A couple months. Maybe 3. Don't really keep track." I leaned my head against the window and watched the city smear by. Thing is, a week ago a people you may know rabbit hole led me to Sophie Hart's Instagram. Not Austin. Manhattan. For at least 2 years. Morning runs in Central Park, Tribeca Pilates, a selfie with a very particular skyline view from a boutique hotel I pass on my commute. And a wedding photo, hers, tagged 2 summers ago. Groom, Mark Whitman. Real estate. Tall, careful smile. A caption that read, 2 years with my forever, surrounded by white hearts. At home, Leo headed for the shower. The bathroom fan clattered to life, steam filled the hall. I opened my laptop and typed like my fingers belonged to someone braver. Sophie's profile again, public, curated, unbothered. Scrolling backward felt like rewinding a movie I suddenly realized I'd been in all along. 11 weeks ago, a glass of white wine on a marble bar I recognized from a midtown hotel. 23 weeks ago, St. Regis tag. 32 weeks, conference life, with an elevator mirror and a hand that wasn't hers holding the phone. I didn't breathe until I found Mark Whitman's business site, minimal, tasteful, office address downtown. A bio with the kind of buzzwords that sell square footage. And at the bottom, a direct email. Something about seeing the words "contact Mark" made the back of my neck hum. I didn't write him then. I didn't trust my anger to keep its hands off the keyboard. Instead, I pulled up our credit card statements. We split the load, he did bills, I did everything inside the house that nobody thanks you for. The transactions lined up like breadcrumbs only a desperate person sees. 11 Madison Park, 2 covers, never comped. On a Thursday Leo swore he grabbed ramen with Ben. The Greenwood Hotel bar charges on a week he was in Philadelphia. Cartier, $2, $7.64, 3 weeks ago. Our anniversary was 6 months out. He hadn't brought home a ribboned box. I took pictures of the screen and texted them to my own number, so they'd live somewhere he wouldn't think to check. The messages popped up in a neat little row, proof I hadn't imagined anything. "Nora?" Leo called from the bedroom, towel around his hips, hair damp and eyes bright in a way that used to light me up. We should book a car for Mia's rehearsal dinner," he said, as if logistics was our native language. "Traffic will be nuts." "Good idea." He smiled that habitual, easy smile. "I knew you'd understand about Sophie." "Of course," I said, and watched him fall asleep 10 minutes later, mouth open, trusting the world to stay as he left it. I stayed up with my laptop glow and my heart in my throat. Hannah in the sample had Isaac, Sophie, I suspected, had Mark. The difference between a suspicion and a plan is a single email. I started drafts and deleted them. Hi, you don't know me felt deranged. We might share a problem felt like a scam. Your wife is invited to my sister's wedding by my husband who claims she's basically family felt like a dare. At 1:12 a.m. I landed on. Subject, a delicate, private matter. Body, hi Mark, this is awkward, but I think our spouses are involved. If I'm wrong, I'll apologize forever. If I'm right, we should compare notes before my sister's rehearsal dinner on Saturday. Nora, Leo Hart's wife. I stared until the words blurred. Then I closed the laptop without sending it. Cowardice or caution, I couldn't tell. Tuesday, Leo's gym day. I drove past his new fitness club at 6:20 p.m. No car. 14 blocks away, the valet canopy of a boutique hotel flashed gold in the rain. Leo's license plate sat smug under the awning. My stomach dropped through the floor of the car. I parked, killed the lights, and sat there like a very quiet crime scene. At 6:42, a woman in a camel coat swept through the revolving door. I couldn't see her face, didn't need to. The way the valet sprinted, the way the doorman straightened, someone who lives like the world slides open for her. A minute later, Leo texted me a selfie from a locker room mirror at his gym. The timestamp matched the boutique hotel's neon clock behind the glass. I drove home slow, the city rinsed and shining and absolutely indifferent. At the kitchen table, I opened the laptop again. The drafts folder blinked. My pulse pounded in my ears. I didn't need eloquence. I needed contact. I sent it. 10 minutes later, nothing. 30, still nothing. I brushed my teeth too hard. I put my phone face down, then flipped it over again because liars make you paranoid about inanimate objects. At 2:06 a.m., my phone buzzed. Mark Whitman, I've had a bad feeling for months. Thank you for reaching out. Can we meet tomorrow? Pearl Street Starbucks, 10 a.m. I'll bring what I have. My body went cold and then hot, like a fever breaking. Proof. The kind that doesn't fit inside a lie. In the dark, Leo turned over and threw an arm across my waist the way he used to when we were still us. I lay rigid and stared at the ceiling, counting the beats of my heart like I was timing a bomb. Tomorrow, I thought, and the word sounded exactly like a door. The Starbucks on Pearl Street smelled like burnt espresso and raindamp coats, and for a second I almost turned around and went back to pretending. Mark was already there. He sat at a corner table, blazer off, shirt sleeves rolled, staring into a coffee he clearly wasn't drinking. In person he looked exactly like his photos and nothing like them at all, less polished, more human. Tired eyes, squared shoulders, the posture of someone who'd been bracing for impact so long he forgot how to stand normally. Nora? He asked, standing halfway. Yeah. My voice sounded small in the noise of milk steamers and keyboards. Hi. We shook hands like coworkers instead of people whose lives had just been set on fire by the same match. He sat, reached down, and pulled a thick manila folder from under his chair. I brought this, he said. Wasn't sure how much you wanted to see. My stomach clenched. You first, I managed. I only have screenshots. He slid the folder toward me. Receipts, printed statements, hotel confirmations, airline tickets, all clipped in tidy stacks. Someone had highlighted dates and circled amounts in neat blue pen. It felt obscene, like reading someone's diary written in transaction codes. That one, he pointed to the top page, is when I stopped believing her. I looked down. Solage Calistoga, Napa Valley. Weekend package for 2. Massages, wine tasting, private bungalow. Date, the same weekend Leo told me he was stuck in Chicago because of last-minute client dinners. She said it was a leadership retreat, Mark said. Her company barely covers conference coffee, but suddenly there's a 5-star resort and a robe in her suitcase she couldn't explain. He laughed once, brittle. I called HR. They'd never heard of it. I swallowed. Leo texted me a photo from his hotel bar that weekend, I said. Reflections in the mirror showed a fireplace. The Chicago Marriott lobby doesn't have one. I googled it for an hour before I admitted I wasn't crazy. Mark reached for another sheet. Here, March. She was supposedly in Dallas for a client pitch. He tapped the header. Hudson Park Hotel, New York City. 2 nights. Room for 2. I found the confirmation in our shared inbox last month. She must have forgotten to delete it. Leo told me he was staying late at the office prepping for a board meeting that week, I said quietly. Came home in the same clothes, no tie. Mark studied my face like he was checking for cracks. How long have you suspected? 10 days, I said. You? 6 months. He blew out a breath. Password changed on her phone. New lingerie I definitely didn't see again. A Pilates instructor, saved under a first name, even though she's never set foot in a studio. But every time I brought it up, I sounded paranoid, even to myself. He pulled his own phone from his pocket, scrolled, and handed it to me. A text thread labeled P. Trainer. Sophie, can't wait for conference next week. Miss your hotel coffee. Unknown, counting down. Booked the same place. I'll handle the room. The number matched Leo's. The room tilted for a second. The Starbucks soundtrack, baristas yelling orders, chairs scraping, it all washed into a muted hum. That's his number, I whispered. He told me it's the line his firm uses for clients, so he keeps it unnamed. Mark nodded, jaw flexing. He's in my phone now too. I called yesterday. It went straight to voicemail with his full name on the greeting. He took his phone back, thumb trembling only slightly. I thought I was losing my mind, he added. She was so certain. Made me feel guilty for asking basic questions. Like checking on your own marriage was somehow abusive. I opened my own folder on my laptop, turned the screen toward him. Here. 11 Madison Park, I said, pointing to the line item. 2 tasting menus. Wine pairing. He said he had a client dinner, sent me a blurry pic of a steak from some other night. She posted this the same evening. I clicked to Sophie's Instagram, dim restaurant, artfully plated food, her caption, sometimes you just need good wine and better company. No tags, just a half-visible wrist and a sleeve I recognized from Leo's dry cleaning bag. Mark leaned back, staring at the ceiling for a beat like he was trying not to put his fist through it. Okay, he said finally, voice low. So we're not imagining anything. It's real. It's been real. We could still be wrong about timing, I offered weakly, hating myself for the reflex to soften the blow. He shook his head. My wife has never been to Napa alone. She hates airports. She cries during takeoff. He pushed the folder back toward me. There's no version of this where they're innocent. We fell silent. The espresso machine hissed. Somewhere behind us, someone laughed too loudly. The ordinary world kept existing. This weekend, I said, finally voicing the piece I'd been circling. My sister's rehearsal dinner is Saturday. Wedding Sunday. Leo invited Sophie as his +1 without asking Mia. Said she's basically family. I swallowed hard. He wants her at the family table. Mark stared at me. She told me she was going on a wellness retreat, he said slowly. Upstate. No phones. Trip with the girls. She put a yoga mat in her trunk for show. I offered to drive her. She gave me a look like I'd suggested installing cameras in the bathroom. The words hung between us, hideous and perfect. So that's the cover, he said. They get a free pass to spend a weekend together under your family's roof. Anger flared up my spine like a sudden fever. I pictured Mia obsessively labeling place cards, Daniel triple-checking the vegan options for his sister, my parents arguing over which champagne to serve, all while Leo slotted his affair into the middle of it like an extra course. I can't let him do that to her, I heard myself say. To them. To us. My hand was gripping the cup so hard the cardboard creased. He doesn't get to turn my sister's wedding into a backdrop for his secret. Mark watched me, something shifting in his expression. So what do you want to do? He asked quietly. Option A, we confront them in private, they lie, we fight, lawyers, separate apartments, the usual song. Option B. Option B? I asked, even though I knew exactly what I wanted him to say. He gave a humorless half-smile. We show up where they least expect us. Together. Make it impossible to spin, deny, gaslight. If they want a wedding weekend so badly, they can have one, with us present. My heart hammered. The idea was insane, theatrical, dangerous. It was also the first thing that made my breathing feel less shallow. You'd come? I asked. To the rehearsal dinner? I'll be your +1, he said, no hesitation. If you invite me. I imagined it, Leo walking in with Sophie on his arm, certain he'd threaded the needle perfectly. My parents meeting his basically family ex. Then Mark, stepping through the same doorway moments later with receipts in his pocket and my hand in his. They'll say we're crazy, I warned. Vindictive. That we set them up. Mark lifted his coffee for the first time, took a slow sip, set it down. His eyes were clear now, not damp, not wild, just done. They've been setting us up for months, he said. We're just changing the ending. I exhaled, a long, shaky rush of air I hadn't realized I was holding. The Starbucks suddenly felt too small for what we were planning. Okay, I said. Saturday night. 7. The hotel restaurant at the Carlton on 5th. Family-only rehearsal dinner. I'll make sure you're on the list. He nodded. I'll bring the folder. And I'll bring screenshots, I said. And a dress that doesn't tremble. We stood to leave at the same time, awkward, like neither of us knew the rules for this kind of alliance. Thank you, I said, stupidly formal. For what? For answering, I said. For not making me feel crazy. He gave me a look that made my throat burn. "You're not crazy, Nora," he said. "You're married to someone who counts on you doubting yourself. That's different." We walked out into the gray light together and parted at the corner like co-workers after a brutal meeting. On the subway home, my phone buzzed. "Leo, don't forget, I told Mia we'd help with seating arrangements tonight. Love you, red heart." I stared at the heart emoji until my eyes stung. Then I typed back, "Of course. Wouldn't miss it." Because if he wanted to choreograph the weekend, I was going to let him, right up until the moment the music cut out. The dress I chose to end my marriage in cost more than my wedding gown. Not because I suddenly cared about labels, but because I wanted something that didn't look like it belonged to the woman who'd let herself be lied to for this long. I wanted armor. It was a deep teal slip dress I found on a Wednesday afternoon when I should have been on a Zoom call. Clean lines, minimal, the kind you have to stand up straight in. When I stepped out of the fitting room, the saleswoman tilted her head and said, "You look like you're about to win something." "Yeah," I said. "Or lose something really big." I bought it with our joint credit card and didn't flinch. The day after I met Mark, I woke up before my alarm. Leo was already in the kitchen, humming along to some soul playlist, flipping pancakes. He almost never cooked during the week. "Morning, stranger," he said brightly when I walked in. "Figured I'd make you breakfast. You've been stressed with all the wedding stuff." He flipped a pancake with unnecessary flourish. My eyes went to his phone on the counter, screen down, case too clean. "Wow," I said. "To what do I owe this? Can't a man spoil his wife?" He grinned, kissed my temple, slid a plate in front of me. Blueberries, powdered sugar, sprig of mint like we were in a commercial. It smelled amazing. My stomach turned anyway. Between bites I couldn't taste, he said, "By the way, I talked to Mia about Sophie's seat. I told her we'd cover Sophie's hotel room. Less stress for them, right?" My fork paused midair. "You offered to pay?" "It's my gift to them," he said, like he was generous, not strategic. "Besides, Soph doesn't know many people here anymore. Being near us will make it less awkward." Sophomore. He hadn't said her name like that in years. Maybe ever around me. I forced a smile. "You're really going all out for this wedding." He beamed and poured me more coffee. "It's a big weekend for your family. I want it to be perfect." I excused myself to take a work call in the bedroom and shut the door. My phone already had a new text. "Mark, morning." Forwarded myself a digital copy of everything. "Printing extra for Saturday. Still good for me to come?" "Me, yes. I'll text you details. Thank you again for not ghosting after yesterday. Mark, we're in this together now. No backing out." I stared at those last 4 words. Together now. No backing out. Wednesday night, I sat at Mia's dining table surrounded by sticky notes and seating chart printouts. She had 3 different versions taped together, like a conspiracy board but with more glitter. "Okay," she said, pencil behind her ear, hair in a messy bun that somehow still looked cute. "We have room for 2 more at the main table if we squeeze. Daniel's cousin is bringing a date, and, your mystery +1. She waggled her eyebrows. "You never use your +1. Who is this person?" I tried to keep my voice light. "A business contact. He works in commercial real estate. Might help me find cheaper office space next year." I figured networking at the rehearsal dinner couldn't hurt. Technically not a lie. Mark did work in real estate. "Mia," Leo called from the couch, where he was pretending not to listen, scrolling on his phone. "Make sure Sophie has a good view of the front. She hasn't seen any of you in so long. I want her to feel included." Mia shot me a look over the seating chart. "Right. Sophie." She didn't bother hiding the flatness in her voice. "I still don't understand why she's at the rehearsal and not just the wedding," she said, tapping her pencil so hard the eraser shredded the paper. "It's supposed to be immediate family plus the wedding party." Leo chuckled like this was all an adorable misunderstanding. "She's basically family, me. She helped me through a rough time in college. And she's flying in on short notice. This is the least we can do." I watched my sister's jaw tighten at the "we." "Anyway," he added, "I booked her room at the Carlton already. Suite with a view. It'll be nice for her." Mia's eyes snapped back to mine. I could practically feel her thinking, did he seriously just say that? I squeezed her hand under the table. "The arrangements are fine," I said quietly. "Can you just trust me on this one? If I say it's handled?" She studied me for a long second. We'd shared a room for 16 years growing up. She knew every version of my panic face. Finally, she nodded. "Okay," she said. "But if this blows up in my face, I'm haunting you until we're 90. "It won't blow up on you," I said. "If anything explodes, it'll be mine." Leo laughed from the couch at something on his phone, like we weren't planning the scene of his eventual humiliation 3 feet away. Thursday, the flowers arrived at my office. Peonies. all blush and white and lush, in an unnecessary vase with a satin bow. The little card, thought of you. Can't wait to dance with you this weekend. L. I set them on the edge of my desk and stared at them between emails. They were beautiful. They also meant my husband was trying to balance an invisible scale only he could see. At 3 p.m., my friend Jenna wheeled her chair over from the next cubicle, coffee in hand. Wow, she said, reading the card. Trouble? Why do you assume trouble? I asked. She gave me a look. Because men send extravagant flowers for 3 reasons: guilt, anniversaries, or PR stunts. It's not your anniversary and Leo's not a politician. I forced a laugh. He's just excited about Mia's wedding. She spun her chair. You okay? You look like you're about to either cry or file a lawsuit. I swallowed. Ask me again Monday. She studied me for a beat, then nodded slowly. If you need a getaway after whatever this is, my couch and cheap wine are available. Noted, I said. When she rolled back, I opened my personal email and created a new folder called Travel Receipts. Inside, I dropped a PDF of every credit card statement, hotel confirmation, and screenshot I'd collected. Then I attached it all to a blank email, addressed it to my mother, my father, Mia, myself, and left the subject line empty. I didn't hit send. Not yet. Knowing I could was like keeping a fire extinguisher under my chair. Friday night, Leo appeared in our bedroom doorway in a crisp shirt and dark jeans. Date night, he announced, dangling car keys. I got a reservation at that new place in the West Village you bookmarked months ago. Figured we should have some us time before wedding chaos. He said us like it hadn't included half-truths and hidden charges for months. I slipped my phone into my pocket. Mark and I had just been texting. Mark, flight booked. I land Saturday at 3. I'll check into a cheap place nearby. No way I'm staying at the Carlton. Me, good call. Text me when you're close. I'll stall if I have to. I typed one more. You sure you're ready for this? His reply came almost instantly. I'm tired of being the only one in my marriage who doesn't know the truth. See you tomorrow, Nora. I pocketed the phone and looked up at Leo. Sure, I said. Date night sounds great. At the restaurant, he was golden. Handsome, funny, attentive, like we'd rewound to the first year of our relationship. He kept reaching for my hand, making toasts to us, talking about trips he wanted to take once things calmed down at work. I watched him and felt like I was sitting across from an actor perfecting his last scene before a show gets cancelled. All polish, no sincerity. On the way home, in the elevator, he pressed me against the mirrored wall and murmured, "You have no idea how lucky I feel, you know that?" I held his face between my hands and studied his eyes. I used to see home there. Now I saw someone who believed in his own performance more than he believed in me. Yeah, I said softly. I'm starting to understand. He smiled, misreading me completely. Saturday came bright and annoyingly beautiful. I laid everything out on the bed. Teal dress. Nude heels I could still run in if I had to. Simple gold earrings, nothing Leo had given me. On the nightstand, my clutch with lipstick, concealer, tissues. In the zippered pocket, a small stack of folded papers and a USB drive. Printed screenshots of Sophie's posts. Credit card charges with dates circled. The hotel confirmations Mark had emailed me. I'd made 2 copies, one for me and one for him. My phone buzzed. Mia, reminder, rehearsal dinner starts at 7 sharp upside down face please don't be late, I'm already sweating. Mom, your father is trying to wear sneakers. Talk to him. Mark, checked into my hotel. I'll wait in the Carlton lobby bar at 7:15. Don't worry, I clean up well. My hand shook a little as I replied. Me Mark, they'll probably arrive around 7:05. Give them 10 minutes to get comfortable. Then come in. Mark, copy. One question. Are we doing dramatic entrance holding hands, or subtle oh fancy seeing you here? I surprised myself by smiling. Me, dramatic but not cheesy. Walk straight to me. Let them connect the dots. Mark, got it. See you on the other side. At 5:30, Leo knocked on the bathroom door while I was doing my eyeliner. You almost ready? He called. I'm picking Sophie up from the airport at 6. Her flight got in early. Airport. Sophie's Instagram had posted a boomerang from a Manhattan rooftop an hour ago. Almost, I said, steadying my hand. Tell her I can't wait to finally meet her. He laughed. See? This is why I love you. You're not threatened by ancient history. I met my own eyes in the mirror, liner sharp, lips bare for now. Ancient history doesn't usually book suites at the same hotel as the rehearsal dinner. When the apartment door closed behind him, the silence rang. I finished my makeup, slid into the teal dress, and fastened the clasp of my necklace with fingers that didn't feel like mine. Before I left, I opened that unsent email again, the one addressed to my family with all the attachments. I added a subject line, if anything happens tonight, open this. I saved it as a draft and closed my laptop. Then I grabbed my clutch, squared my shoulders, and walked out the door. At 6:52 p.m., the cab pulled up to the Carlton on 5th. Through the revolving doors, I could see my parents at the far end of the lobby, my mother adjusting her scarf, my father checking his watch. Mia and Daniel huddled near the elevators, arguing about something with a clipboard. My phone buzzed in my hand. Leo, we're 5 minutes away. Can't wait for you to meet sophomore. You're going to love her. I stared at the message, then at my reflection in the darkened glass. Let's find out, I murmured. I stepped into the light of the lobby just as the revolving door behind me began to turn. The Carlton lobby felt over-air-conditioned and too bright, like a hospital for expensive feelings. My mother saw me first. Nora, she called, waving me over. Her lipstick was perfect, her eyes a little too wide. You look, wow. My father gave a low whistle. Your sister is going to be furious if you upstage her at her own rehearsal. Relax, Mia said, stepping out from behind him, clipboard in hand. Nora could show up in sweatpants and I'd still be staring at the seating chart. She pulled me into a hug that lasted a second longer than casual. Are we okay? She murmured into my hair. We will be, I said. Just, remember I told you to trust me. She leaned back, searching my face like it was an answer key. Whatever she saw there made her swallow hard and nod. Daniel appeared, kissed my cheek, made a joke about Carver women and their dramatic entrances. For a moment, it almost felt normal. Then my phone buzzed. Leo, pulling up now. Wait until you meet sophomore. She's been dying to see everyone. Everyone, meaning him. I typed back, we're by the elevators, and slid the phone into my clutch. 30 seconds later, the revolving door whooshed. Leo stepped through first in a navy suit I hadn't seen before, looking like a man starring in his own life. Behind him, Sophie. She was exactly what I expected and somehow worse. Blonde hair in loose waves, simple black dress that probably cost the same as a used car, a delicate chain at her throat. She carried herself like she'd already been forgiven. Leo's face lit when he saw me. There she is, he said, moving in to kiss my cheek. His hand lingered at my waist a beat too long, like claiming territory. Nora, he said warmly, turning to Sophie with practiced ease. This is Sophie. Finally, you two get to meet. I offered my hand. Nice to finally put a face to the legend, I said. My voice was steady, almost pleasant. Sophie's smile was flawless, her grip cool. I feel like I already know you, she said. Leo talks about you all the time. I lifted an eyebrow. Does he? If she heard the steel under the question, she didn't show it. Mia stepped in, polite smile freezing at Sophie like the name tasted off. Welcome, she said. Thank you for coming. Thank you for including me, Sophie replied. Leo has told me so much about your family. You're all so important to him. My mother's jaw twitched almost imperceptibly. Well, she said, hostess mode engaging, let's get everyone into the private dining room before my husband starts complaining about low blood sugar. We moved as a cluster toward the restaurant, a strange little parade, my parents in front, Mia and Daniel behind them, Leo and Sophie next, then me slightly apart, watching. Leo kept leaning in toward Sophie, murmuring something that made her laugh softly, hand on his arm. Anyone glancing over would have thought couple. A hostess led us into the private room. Long table down the center, white linen, candles, pale flowers. Place cards like tiny tombstones. I found mine, Nora, between my parents. To my right, an empty spot labeled guest of Nora. Across from me, Leo with Sophie neatly to his right. Of course. Leo pulled Sophie's chair out for her like muscle memory. My mother clocked the gesture, eyes going flat for a heartbeat. Once everyone sat, there was the usual shuffle, napkins, menus, jokes about overordering. I made conversation with my father about parking, of all things, and watched Leo fill 2 wine glasses without asking, sliding one to Sophie before even glancing at me. She thanked him with a little smile that belonged to history, not ancient. Mia tapped her glass for attention. Okay, before we get food, I just want to say, thank you all for being here. Tomorrow is the big circus, but tonight feels like the us part. Family. Her voice caught, and she laughed it off. Okay, that's enough mush. We clinked glasses. I didn't drink. My phone vibrated in my lap. Mark, bar in the lobby. Ready when you are. I glanced at the time, 7:14. Me, come in at 7:20. Walk straight to me. No dramatics. Let the facts do the work. Mark, copy that. Across the table, Leo was mid-story about some fabricated college fundraiser Sophie had helped with. My mother nodded politely, I crease deepening. She's never organized anything more formal than a church bake sale. Sophie jumped in to fill details, the two of them weaving a narrative that didn't include me, or reality. Their chemistry was not old friends. It was present tense. My chest stayed strangely calm. Numb, almost. At 7:19, the door opened quietly. The room didn't go silent. Noise doesn't cut that fast, but I felt the shift, like pressure dropping before a storm. Mark stood in the doorway in a charcoal suit, posture easy, gaze sweeping the room once. His eyes found mine. He smiled, not wide, not performative, just, there. Nora, he said, walking toward our end of the table. Sorry I'm late. Midtown was a nightmare. Every fork around us paused. Conversations thinned and then stopped. Leo's head jerked up. Sophie went very still. I stood as he reached me. You made it, I said, like we'd rehearsed. There was a second of silence where the whole room listened for what came next. I turned slightly so my parents, Mia, Daniel, and Leo, could all see us. Everyone, I said clearly, this is Mark Whitman, my guest tonight. I let the beat sit. And Sophie's husband. The sound that followed wasn't one sound. It was chairs creaking, a glass being set down too fast, my mother's sharp inhale, someone on the far end whispering oh my god. Color drained from Sophie's face so fast it was like watching ink pulled from paper. Leo's hand closed around his wineglass stem until his knuckles went white. Mark nodded toward my parents with quiet courtesy. Mr. and Mrs. Carver, he said. Thank you for having me. My father stared, then slowly pushed his chair back and stood as well. You're Sophie's husband, he repeated. Yes, sir. Mark's voice was steady. We've been married 3 years. My mother's gaze snapped to Sophie. Is that true? Sophie opened her mouth, closed it. We're separated, she blurted. It's complicated. That's interesting, Mark said mildly. We woke up in the same bed on Wednesday. Leo found his voice first. This is insane, he said, half laughing, eyes darting around the room. Nora, what is this? Some kind of stunt? I picked up my clutch, unzipped the inner pocket, and took out a crisp folded stack of papers. Mark did the same from his jacket. We didn't raise our voices. We didn't need to. This, I said, sliding the first sheet down the table so it landed in front of my father, is the Napa Resort bill. 2 guests. 1 king bed. Same weekend you were stranded in Chicago, Leo. Same weekend Sophie posted a leadership retreat photo from a robe that matches the resort's. My father adjusted his glasses, looked down, read. The muscles in his jaw jumped. And this, Mark added, laying a second sheet beside it, is the Hudson Park Hotel bill. 2 nights. Same dates Soph said she was in Dallas for a client. Same dates Leo told Nora he was sleeping at the office. My mother picked that one up with hands that shook, just once, before she steeled them. I don't owe you an explanation, Sophie snapped suddenly, finding some heat. You went through my things? That's invasive, Mark. He looked at her for a long, measured second. I went through our shared email inbox, he said quietly. After I saw you had Pilates saved under a number that belongs to Leo. He slid his phone across the linen. The text thread was open, middle-aged lighting blue. Sophie's name at the top, messages visible. Can't wait to get you to yoga retreat this weekend. Same room as last time? From Leo. Obviously. Already told Mark I'll be off-grid from Sophie. Mia made a sound like she'd been punched. Daniel reached for her hand under the table. Leo's face darkened. You're taking this out of context, he said. Those texts are timestamped, I interrupted, voice still calm. And they line up with charges on our joint card. St. Regis. 11 Madison. The Greenwood. I pulled out one more sheet. This is my favorite, I said. 11 Madison Park. Tasting menu for 2. The same night you told me you grabbed burgers with Ben after client emergency. The same night Sophie posted this. I took out my phone, set it next to the bill, screen lit with an Instagram post, Sophie's hand, that same restaurant, caption, sometimes you need to celebrate old stories. I don't see Leo's face there, Leo said desperately. You're making a leap. I see your sleeve, I replied. The one I picked up from the dry cleaner the next day with red wine on the cuff. Silence. My father shifted his gaze to Leo. Is any of this untrue? He asked. His voice wasn't loud, but the room heard. Leo opened his mouth. His throat worked. That's enough, my mother said, standing now. Color had risen high on her cheeks, but her voice was ice. You are a guest at my son's celebration, in a room we paid for, after inviting another woman to sit at our family table under false pretenses. It's not false, Leo tried. It is, I said, finally turning fully to him. You told them she was basically family, but you forgot to mention you were still sleeping with her. Sophie blurted, "We're soulmates," like that helped, like that made it less ugly. Across the table, Mia flinched. My father put a hand on her shoulder without looking away from Leo. "This was supposed to be a quiet dinner before my daughter's wedding," he said. "And you chose to use it as cover for an affair." "Dad," Leo started. My father's expression hardened at the word. "Do not call me that," he said. "You had every chance to come to us like an adult if your marriage was over. Instead, you lied. You lied here." He tapped the table with one blunt finger. "In my house. In front of my family." The room was so quiet I could hear the candles flicker. "I can explain," Leo said, now looking at me like I was the only person left in the room. "Nora, please. We were just talking." It was an emotional thing that got out of hand. "It's not what it looks like." I met his eyes and, for the first time in weeks, felt nothing but clarity. "I spent 10 days thinking I was losing my mind," I said evenly. "Then I spent 2 days collecting documents. What it looks like is exactly what it is." Sophie turned on me. "You set us up," she hissed. "You made this a show. You could have talked to us privately. You made it public when you walked into my sister's rehearsal dinner on my husband's arm," I replied. "I'm just refusing to play along with your stage directions." My mother exhaled slowly, then addressed the room, still in that composed, terrifying tone she usually reserves for rude caterers. "Elijah and Hannah were the other story. Here it's Leo and Sophie. We must keep consistent. She won't say names wrong. Let's keep Leo. Sophie," she said. "You need to leave. Now." Sophie laughed, a brittle, high sound. "You can't kick me out. I was invited. By my son-in-law," my father said. "Who, as of this moment, is no longer considered family in this house." Leo looked like he'd been struck. "You're overreacting." A few trips and texts. Mark finally spoke again, his voice low but clear. "It's not a few trips," he said. "It's a pattern. 6 months of coordinated lies. Flights, hotels, dinners. All while telling us we were crazy for asking questions." He tapped the folder with one fingertip. "There's enough here to convince any judge on earth, if that's where this goes." Leo's gaze flicked to him with pure hatred. "You don't know anything about my marriage. I know you booked a suite under your corporate card the same weekend Sophie told me she was at a women's wellness camp," Mark said. "I know you saved her under a fake contact on your phone. I know you invited her to your sister-in-law's wedding and paid for her room with money your wife helped earn." He shrugged once. "That tells me enough." The spell broke not with yelling, but with movement. Chairs scraping back. My uncle muttering something under his breath. A cousin standing to walk Mia out for air. I stayed rooted. Leo straightened, pulling his suit jacket into place like armor. "You're making a huge mistake," he said to me, each word deliberate. "We can fix this. We can go to therapy, we can." "Albert," my mother said to my father, ignoring Leo, "can you please ask hotel staff to arrange a car for Mr. Hart and Ms. Hart?" She didn't look at them when she said it. She looked at her napkin, folding it neatly beside her plate. The use of his last name landed harder than any shouting. Leo swallowed. His eyes searched my face for a crack, a plea, anything. "Nora," he tried one last time. "Say something." "I did," I said. "I said yes to Mark's RSVP. I picked up my clutch and sat down again, carefully smoothing my dress, signaling, to him, to everyone, that my part was finished. Sophie stood so fast her chair tipped, Mark caught it without looking at her. "This isn't fair," she said, voice shaking. "We didn't do anything you can prove." I tilted my head. "I think we've proven enough for tonight." My father gestured toward the door. "Out," he said simply. They went. Not quickly, there was too much pride for that, but they went. Leo paused in the doorway like he wanted to turn back, to say something grand, to force some kind of parting scene. I took a sip of water without looking at him. Whatever he'd come to say died there. The door closed with a soft, decisive click. For a few seconds, the room held its breath. Then my grandmother at the far end cleared her throat. "Well," she said crisply, "if the soup gets cold, we really will have a disaster on our hands." A few people laughed, not because it was funny, but because the alternative was crying. My mother sat slowly, placed her hands flat on the table, and looked at me. "Are you all right?" she asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I'm right." She nodded once, eyes bright. "Good. That matters." Mark eased into the chair next to me, the one with the card that just said guest of Nora, and let out a long breath I don't think he realized he was holding. "We actually did it," he murmured. "Yeah," I said, staring at the empty chairs across from us. "We did." And for the first time since this started, the cold in my chest felt less like numbness and more like clean air. The rehearsal dinner didn't resume so much as restart around a hole. The 2 empty chairs across from me stayed where they were. No one moved them. The staff brought out soup, then fish, then steak, as if the evening hadn't just been torn in half. Mia came back in after 10 minutes, eyes rimmed red, but she was composed. When she passed behind my chair, she squeezed my shoulder once, hard, steady, then went to her seat at the head of the table next to Daniel. She lifted her glass when dessert came. "So," she said, voice a little rough, "tomorrow I'm marrying the love of my life. Tonight, my sister saved me from accidentally giving a front row seat to a man who doesn't deserve her." She looked straight at me. "To Nora, for refusing to decorate over rot." People laughed, some awkwardly, some with relief. Glasses lifted. My father didn't look away from me as he drank, and I felt something settle in my chest that had nothing to do with Leo anymore. Later, when the plates were cleared and small talk thinned, Mark and I walked out together. "Do you need a ride?" he asked as we reached the sidewalk. "I'm at the hotel," I said. "Mia insisted on booking me my own room, bridesmaid headquarters, weeks ago." "You? Cheap place around the corner." He hesitated. "If you need to debrief, or sit in silence and stare at the wall, my hotel lobby has chairs." I smiled, tired but genuine. "I think I need to stare at the ceiling alone tonight," I said. "But, thank you." "Really?" He nodded. "Text me tomorrow. Just, let me know you're okay." "I will." I watched him walk away, the man whose heart had been broken by the same 2 people, shoulders squared against a city that didn't care. The morning of the wedding was aggressively perfect. Blue sky, no humidity, the kind of September air that makes everything look like a filter. In the bridal suite, there were curling irons, steamers, makeup bags, and exactly one unspoken question hovering over everything. "Are you okay?" At one point, when the hairstylist went to get more pins, it was just Mia and me in front of the mirror. She met my eyes in the reflection. "Are you sure you want to stay?" she asked quietly. "If you need to go home, I'll understand. I don't want you to feel trapped here." "This is your wedding day," I said. "I'm exactly where I want to be." Her eyes filled, then cleared. "Do you hate me a little for making you wear lavender on the day you blew up your marriage?" I snorted. "I hate you for the shoes more. But no, I don't hate you." She sobered. "I'm sorry he did that to you. And to us. And that I didn't see it sooner." "It wasn't your job to see it," I said. "He made sure none of us did." She turned fully then and hugged me, hard. "For what it's worth," she whispered, "I've never been more proud to be your sister." When it was time, I walked down the aisle with one of Daniel's cousins, holding my bouquet like a shield. I felt eyes on me, whispers had done laps overnight, but nobody said anything. If anything, people smiled like they didn't know which expression was appropriate. During the ceremony, when the officiant talked about trust, there was a tiny tightness in my throat. When Mia and Daniel said their vows, simple, honest, no grand gestures, relief bloomed where anger had been. Later, during the reception, my father pulled me aside behind the DJ table. "I spoke to a lawyer this morning," he said without preamble. "Good one. Friend of a client. He'll meet you Tuesday." "Dad, you didn't have to." "Yes," he interrupted, eyes firm. "I did. That man lied in my house and used your sister's wedding as a prop. I can't fix what he did, but I can make sure you're not alone cleaning it up." I swallowed. "Thank you." He nodded once. "And Nora?" "Yeah? I liked you before Leo," he said. "I'll like you after." That almost undid me more than anything Leo had. By Monday, my phone was a museum of damage control. "Leo, we need to talk." "Leo, you humiliated me in front of your entire family." "Leo, we could have handled this privately." "Leo, I made a mistake." "It doesn't erase everything we had." "Leo, ignoring me won't fix anything, Nora." I didn't respond. I screenshotted everything and dropped it into a folder labeled legal. Sophie tried once, a long, carefully typed paragraph about toxic jealousy, how Mark had always been controlling, how old connections are complicated and don't fit into neat moral boxes. At the end, she added, "If you were secure in your marriage, you wouldn't have felt the need to ambush us." I stared at that line for a full minute, then blocked her. Somewhere 3 years ago, I might have believed that. Not anymore. Mark texted that same afternoon, a screenshot of a deleted Instagram post from Sophie, something vague about outgrowing people, and a simple, "She's rewriting the story already. Hope you're holding up." "I am," I wrote back. "Or at least I'm not falling apart." "That feels like something." "That's a lot," he replied. "One day at a time." The lawyer my father found was brisk, patient, and deeply unimpressed by Leo's behavior. "Paperwork straightforward," she said, flipping through my file. "No kids, no shared business, prenup that mostly protects you. The only messy part is going to be his ego." He's already updating his version of events, I said. I'm sure by next week I'll be the unhinged wife who made a scene. The lawyer smiled thinly. That's the nice thing about receipts, she said. They don't have feelings. Or agendas. When the official separation papers were delivered to Leo's new apartment, my lawyer refused to meet him anywhere public. He called 5 times in a row. I let them all go to voicemail. In one, he sounded angry. You're really going through with this? Over a few stupid mistakes? You're throwing away years. In another, he sounded pleading. We can fix this. Therapy, time apart, whatever you want. Don't let your family pressure you into this. In the last, he sounded tired. You blindsided me, Nora. I never thought you'd do something like that. I don't even know who you are anymore. That, weirdly, was the only part that didn't sting. Because he was right. He didn't know this version of me. The one who didn't quietly swallow lies and call it understanding. I forwarded the audio files to my lawyer and deleted them. The apartment changed in stages. First, his clothes. Boxed, labeled, stacked by the door. My friend Jenna came over with cheap wine and ruthless commentary. That shirt always gave me bad vibes, she said, tossing one into a donation pile. Like, man who wears this tells women they're overreacting. Second, his stuff on surfaces. Watches, cologne, the framed photo of him shaking hands with some senior partner. All the little artifacts meant to say, a successful man lives here. By the third trip down to the building's lobby with boxes, my shoulders ached. My chest didn't. Third, the wedding photos. I didn't rip them up dramatically. I slid them into a large envelope, wrote his mother's address on it, and dropped it at the post office with the rest of the mail. She called once, voice thick. I don't know what happened, she said. But I know my son, Anne. I know your son too, I said gently. We just learned different parts of him. After that, she stopped calling. 3 months later, the divorce was final. I signed my name on the last document at my kitchen table, using the nice pen Leo once gave me for my promotion. The irony was neat and clean, like the signatures. My phone buzzed as I slid the papers back into their envelope. Mark, Judge signed everything this morning. Officially no longer Mr. and Mrs. Whitman. How are you? Me, same boat. Just signed. This boat needs cocktails. Mark, Pearl Street Starbucks in an hour? One last trauma coffee, then we upgrade to bars like normal people? I laughed. Deal. He looked lighter when I saw him, the permanent tension in his shoulders replaced by something looser. There was a faint tan line where his ring used to be. To being the last to know, he said dryly, raising his paper cup. To making sure that never happens again, I countered, tapping mine to his. We talked, about lawyers, about how friends picked sides, about what we were doing with weekends now that we didn't have to wonder where our spouses really were. At one point he mentioned a woman he'd started seeing, a nurse this time, different chaos, and he smiled in a way that didn't look haunted. I told him, in broad strokes, about a chef I'd met at a neighborhood wine bar. He smells like garlic and stress, I said. It's oddly reassuring. Very hard to lie about working in a kitchen. Built-in alibi, Mark said, amused. You deserve boring honesty, you know that? Boring is starting to sound like luxury, I said. We lingered until our cups were empty. When we finally stood, he hugged me, tight, not romantic, just grateful. We survived them, he said into my hair. We survived ourselves, too, I said. The parts that ignored every red flag. He pulled back and nodded once. Here's to not doing that again. That night, back in my apartment, the one that now actually felt like mine, I sat on the couch with a blank notebook. My therapist had suggested journaling. Not about them, she said. About you. About what you want to remember the next time someone asks you to ignore your own instincts. On the first page, I wrote Leo's line that started everything. If you trust me, you'll get it. Underneath, I added, if I trust myself, I won't. I wrote about the way my stomach had dropped at that Sunday dinner. How quickly I'd rushed to make everyone else comfortable. How easy it had been for him to weaponize my desire to not be the jealous wife. I wrote about Mia's hand on my shoulder, about my father's quiet anger in my defense, about my mother's precise, icy hospitality turned into a boundary. And I wrote about the rehearsal dinner, the way the room had held its breath when Mark walked in, the sound of the champagne glass not shattering this time but being set down firmly as I chose myself. By the time I stopped, my hand ached. The pages weren't pretty or polished. They didn't have a moral ready for export. They were true. That felt like enough. My phone buzzed. A text from the chef, closing up. Saved you a slice of the chocolate tart you liked. I promise I've been at the restaurant all day, my feet hurt too much for affairs. I smiled, free and unhurried. I'll be there in 20, I wrote back. Smell like butter when I get there, or I'll be suspicious. He sent back a picture of his flour-dusted hands. I grabbed my keys, glanced once at the envelope of signed papers on the table, then at the city lights beyond the window. For the first time since Leo's sentence at that Sunday dinner, the future didn't feel like a test I could fail. It felt like a blank page. Messy, unpredictable, but mine.